4-year-old Ariel and his father hoped to seek protection from persecution in the United States. Instead, when they arrived at the border, they were forcibly separated from each other. Customs and Border Protection officers told Ariel's father that they did not believe he was in fact Ariel's father, even though he showed them a copy of Ariel's birth certificate, which included both of their names and photos. They accused him of smuggling his own child. Ariel was taken more than 1,000 miles away to a shelter in New York, while his father was held at an ICE detention center in Arizona. This is when the Young Center became aware of Ariel's case. After learning Ariel's story and finding his father, the team at the Young Center was able to establish regular contact between them. Over the next several months, they had to advocate with multiple federal agencies for the release and reunification of Ariel and his father. Ultimately, their demands were heard, and in collaboration with several partner organizations, they reunited Ariel with his father. When they were finally together, Ariel's father said, "When they gave him back to me, I cried. I don't want that to happen to other families, like it happened to me, because it is painful for the entire family."
This is the story of 2-year-old Yesenia. When she arrived at the border, authorities forcibly separated her from her father. The government claimed that the reason why it took Yesenia from her father was because he had a criminal record. However, there was no evidence he posed a risk to his daughter. In fact, the very next day, immigration officials released him from detention. Meanwhile, Yesenia was flown across country to be placed in a shelter for children in Chicago. The Young Center was appointed as Yesenia's child advocate a month after she was taken from her father. A child advocate began to work, visited Yesenia, and started gathering information about the relationship between her and her father. They learned that they share a healthy parent-daughter bond. Shelter caseworker will show Yesenia a picture of her father as he spoke to her over the phone. They reported that as Yesenia heard his voice, saw his picture, she became happy and very excited. The Young Center also tracked down the information about her father and learned that the charges on his records have nothing to do with his fitness to care for his daughter. As suspected, the government did not have a reason to separate Yesenia from her father. This caused unnecessary harm to her and her family. With this new information, the Young Center immediately fought for Yesenia's release and reunification with her father. The team argued that for a child like Yesenia, each day of separation from her father would cause long-term harm to her healthy development and sense of safety she will need throughout her life. In response, government officials waived any further inquiries, including a house study, that would prolong Yesenia's separation. Thanks to her child advocate, Yesenia was finally reunited with her father.
David was 4 years old when his father came to the United States seeking help for his ill child. When they arrived at the border, government officials separated David and his father under the administration's zero tolerance policy. David was taken into government custody, diagnosed with a heart defect, and scheduled for an open heart surgery. This is when the Young Center was appointed to his case as child advocate. The Young Center attorney appointed to David's case was in close contact with both of his parents. They wanted their son to remain in the United States to get the medical care that he needed. However, they were also heartbroken at the thought of being separated from him during the surgery and the months of recovery afterward. With only 2 weeks remaining before David's surgery, the Young Center team coordinated with people from 5 different organizations to request humanitarian parole for his parents. Humanitarian parole is an extraordinary measure which allows people to enter the country temporarily for an emergency. It has always been notoriously difficult to obtain, but it's nearly impossible under the current administration. Against all odds, on the Friday before the surgery, David's parents were granted humanitarian parole. The Young Center team worked around the clock to make sure David's parents were at his side during a complex but successful surgery. But that wasn't the end of the family's challenges. Once he was cleared for release from the hospital, the government wanted David to return to federal custody until his medical care was complete, and where his parents would only be limited to one visit a day. Undeterred, the Young Center attorney convinced the hospital to provide David ongoing medical care free of charge so he could be with his family during his recovery. With this final hurdle removed, David was reunified with his parents after 7 months of separation.
Andy and Junior are brothers, but throughout his life, Junior has taken care of his little brother like a father. When they arrived at the U.S. border to seek protection in October 2018, the brothers were forcibly separated by authorities. 7-year-old Andy was transferred to a facility in New York, and Junior was placed in adult detention in Texas, nearly 2,000 miles away. The siblings were devastated, especially because Junior had been Andy's primary caregiver in Honduras. It took 15 days before Junior could finally speak to his brother. On the phone, Andy couldn't stop crying. 4 months later, Junior was released from detention. He immediately told the government that he wanted to sponsor Andy so that he could be released and join him. Before Andy could be released to his brother, Junior had to appear in immigration court. The team at the Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights in New York collaborated with a local organization in Texas to help Junior travel and attend court. They then coordinated with another organization to help Junior visit Andy in New York. A volunteer child advocate visited Andy every week to make sure he didn't feel abandoned and alone during the many months he spent away from his brother. Meanwhile, the Young Center advocated with government agencies for Andy's release and reunification with his brother. The advocacy paid off, and the brothers were finally reunited in April 2019.